besides Hogan versus Warrior.
That was probably the first time, to be honest with you.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, seriously. And then that became more prevalent. And then now the problem in wrestling is like the bad guys, there's no real heels anymore. And so the landscape is changing, the things are changing, but also what's changing is the exposure. There's so much professional wrestling on. It's tough to stand out. And I didn't love Will Ospreay versus Ricochet last year. You saw that match, right?
Yes.
You liked it. Did you love it, or did you like it? You thought it was a good match?
No, it was good. I mean, it wasn't like my favorite match of all time or anything like that.
Right, yeah. I can understand having a problem with the lack of selling in certain spots. Like, for example, Will Ospreay, I'm a big fan of a lot of he does, but, over the weekend, he hit a springboard shooting star press to the outside, completely no-sold it, rolled Jay White into the ring and did a springboard cutter. Like that, to me, you got to slow down a little bit. You got to sell, the move you just did. And I hear you. Don't get me wrong. I think that's a big part, and a lot of people can work on that. But what also really bothers me is the stereotype. How, you stereotype all quote-unquote indie guys into that, into the super kicks and stuff like that. You're like Adam Cole. Adam Cole's not a dive guy. He's probably the best. Fair to say, he's one of the best quote-unquote indie guys out there right now.
Right.
He's not a dive guy. He's not a dive over the top rope 400 times, no sell kind of guy. And he did a fantastic job of getting himself over, which is probably why he's going to NXT right now.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's just different styles. I mean, when you like the cruiserweights in WCW in the mid to late 90s are probably similar to some of that indie style stuff that's going on now, like with the Ospreay and Ricochet and things of that nature, right? Like, it's just it's a lot of high spots and big dives and not a lot of selling and drama and intermatch storyline. It's just not what it is. But if you look at WCW shows back from that time, and it's not the best example because their main events weren't the greatest during that period of time because the guys that they had were kind of on in age and
finger poke of doom.
Yeah, Hogan and stuff like that wasn't like an elite worker at any real point, but he wasn't in his best at that time. But like, you can watch a show for WCW and you'd get a cruiserweight match at some point. You'd get a tag team division match. You might get a TV title or a U.S. title match with guys like Guerrero or Benoit or Malenko or Jericho and stuff like that. They're working their style. And then you'd have the main event guys that are doing their thing there. So there's different stuff up and down the card that you can watch and just kind of get a different feel for the action. So I don't think it's, to lump everybody in, right, like some of these guys may be doing, like Orton or whomever is, they're indie wrestlers and they work this one style. That's not true, and he probably just doesn't, he probably has never really seen a lot of indie wrestling, or at least not the current stuff. I'm sure he doesn't take his time to do that because he's got other stuff to worry about or care about, and that's fine. So he's really not in a position probably to be making those types of claims. So it's a lot of stuff that stuff gets blown out of proportion. He kind of mouthed off that he shouldn't have, and other guys like to react to it to probably just bring attention to themselves, like Bully Ray and whoever else was kind of flying back at him.
I think Bully Ray kind of made light of it because he's a quote, he's a grizzled vet and he was jumping off the top rope, and I think some people think that just because the veterans are working the indie shows, it's because they have to and they don't have any money. Where a guy like Bully Ray, I'm almost 99% sure he's set for life. He doesn't have to work a day in his life, and he works the indie shows because he likes them. That's why he turned down a contract with WWE and Impact to wrestle for Ring of Honor, because that was something he wanted to do. So I don't, I feel like he, put yourself in that, in the locker room. Let's say you're, Randy's on SmackDown. So let's say you're a Kevin Owens or you're a Sami Zayn. How would you take that?
Of what Orton said?
Yeah.
I would ignore it. Probably. Okay. I really wouldn't. I mean, honestly, if I was them, I wouldn't care what Randy Orton says about me. Like, it doesn't make a difference. Like, he doesn't have that perspective, of working on independent wrestling shows and all these different things. And guys are just doing different stuff these days to try to get themselves over and noticed. So, sometimes that works. Guys will get signed by WWE if that's a lot of their ultimate goals for a lot of these guys, and they get signed and they don't work the same style when they get there. I'm sure they're told and coached to do different things when they're in NXT and eventually the main roster, and they change and they adapt. Some of it works out better for certain guys than others. But I mean, if Kevin Owens or Sami Zayn or whoever is in the locker room, and I hear Randy Orton mouthing off when he's drunk or posting something on Twitter, like it just doesn't really. I wouldn't take too much of it because those guys are doing, they're successful in their own right, and Orton's been around a long time with the company, and that's why he has had the championship like 13 times. He won his first world championship in 2004. So we're talking 13 years in the business, and he's won 13 world championships. I mean, Kevin Owens has been up on the main roster for 2 years, and he's been NXT champion, he's been Universal champion, he's been Intercontinental champion, and US champion already in 2 years he's been up. So he's doing just as fine in his own right on the main roster. So if I was him, I wouldn't really worry about anything that Orton says because he's going to be around probably longer, after Orton leaves.
Yeah. It kind of goes back to what JBL was saying on that Bring It to the Table, where he said it's not a badge of honor to work 10 years in the independent scene. I think that's the kind of mindset from a lot of the I don't say the jocks, but a lot of the higher ups in WWE, maybe the wrestlers, not from the not the office, but personally, I think it is because you really hone your craft there, and maybe you become who you are, and it's tougher to work to get yourself over than it is to have a name and get yourself over. So yeah. I think it's an interesting conversation, and I wonder what's going to happen. I mean, I'll tell you right now, Will Ospreay is making a killing on those T-shirts. He has the ... dive T-shirt, which good for him, man. If he can make money off of Randy Orton, that good for him. Man. Whatever these guys have to do to get over it, and just keep doing their doing, and just keep reinventing the wheel. I mean, there's only so much you could do in pro wrestling. ECW was beat up for doing their hardcore stuff in the early 90s, and 3 years later it shows up in WWE TV, and it's called the Attitude Era, and it's just, it's a flash in the pan. You got to change with the times, and right now, the Ultimate Warrior Hulk Hogan look, that's not in so much, despite Vince McMahon's best efforts. That's not really what's selling out arenas. And judging by the pictures of SmackDown, nothing is selling out arenas over there.
By the way, I thought about a few different face versus face matches while this conversation was going on. Remember. Bret versus Piper, WrestleMania 8. Okay. Bret versus Bulldog, SummerSlam 92.
Okay.
And Macho Man vs. Ultimate Warrior is also SummerSlam 92. So that's maybe like 2 years later.
Wasn't Macho a heel at that point because he had Initial Sherry?
No, that was 90. That was after he retired and came back.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay, I'm sorry, 91. I was thinking of yeah.
Anyway, that's all I got about
That's
that.
how your brain works. You
need. As we're sitting here talking about that, I was trying to think of other things from that era or around that time where it was good guy versus good guy, and those are the next ones. There might have been something from 91 that I missed. I'm just trying to remember, and I can't really recall it. So 92, those few matches happened at WrestleMania and SummerSlam. So those are like 2 back-to-back pay-per-views. Where they came up. But anyway, that's pretty much that. So do you want to segue into Backlash on Sunday?
Do you want to talk NXT first, or do you want to talk Backlash?
You want to go chronologically?
You want to go chronologically? I think that's a good idea. But before we get to any sort of predictions, we are here once again to remind you that the All Night Long Wrestling Podcast is brought to you by the Damage 365 Radio Network.
Former WWE superstar Damian Sandow, now known as Aaron Stevens, and you're listening to Damage 365 Radio. Keep it tuned. You're welcome.
Again, the All Night Long Wrestling Podcast. Us, the official wrestling podcast of ProWrestling.com. You could find us on Facebook.com/AllNightLongWP, at AllNightLongWP, on Twitter, on Instagram, and now on ProWrestling.com. NXT Takeover Chicago, Saturday night. Last week or 2 weeks ago, there was a number contenders match for the NXT heavyweight title. It was Hideo Itami versus Roderick Strong in a fantastic match. Hideo Itami got the win in his return. And main event's going to be Rude versus Hideo Itami. The rest of the card's going to look like this. Asuka versus Ruby Riott versus Nikki Cross. Was supposed to have Ember Moon involved in that match as well. Unfortunately, she got hurt. The Authors of Pain versus DIY in a ladder match for the NXT Tag title. Tyler Bate, the UK champ, versus Pete Dunne. And Roderick Strong versus Eric Young. That must have just gotten added, that last one.
Yeah, it must be pretty recent. I mean, I haven't seen... NXT is airing, or just aired like an hour ago, so I didn't get to watch that yet. I don't know if that was announced maybe tonight, but that was recently announced because, like you said, Roddy just fought Itami on last week's show.
Yep.
So,
all right, let's start from the bottom, work our way up. First match: Roderick Strong versus EY. Interesting booking. I'd have to, I really can't see either guy benefiting from a loss here. Roddy just had a hard-fought match against Itami where he took the loss clean. So I think you got to give Roderick the win here and have him kind of outsmart Alexander Wolf and Killian Dane on the outside and get the win.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the right thing to do. Hopefully, that is what they do. I know they went for a long while with Sanity beating Ty Dillinger at every turn, for Dillinger to finally win a cage match against Young on NXT a few weeks ago before he went up to the main, or even after he went to the main roster, but it was his last match in NXT. So I hope they don't continue that same pattern here, because I don't think continuously beating Roddy is the way to go. It seemed like they were trying to build him up with those video packages about his life and his all his stuff that went on with him in his career. So I think that the right thing to do would be to give Roderick Strong the win. So I'll predict that here.
Okay, next up, Tyler Bate versus Pete Dunne for the WWE UK title. Why don't you lead this one off? Because I'm really having... Well, actually, let me ask you this. Friday night, or actually Friday afternoon, there's going to be a UK special, correct?
Yes.
Does that have anything to do with this match? Do we know?
Well, those I think matches were taped a couple weeks ago when they were on tour out there.
Okay.
I don't know that I read all the spoilers for those, so there may be some angles in that led up to this match. I know I've seen other stuff and previous to that where Pete Dunne was essentially anointed as the first main challenger for Bate. I know Bate defended his title once or twice since he won it in the UK tournament. So I think they've been kind of building with Pete Dunne as the top heel challenger for Bate since the tournament actually happened a few months ago. As far as the match itself, I don't know much about... Let me rephrase that. I don't know that there's a lot more for Bate to accomplish as the champion. If he might... I can see... I think he's going to lose the title to Dunne. Whether it happens here or not, I guess if they want to stretch it out for another pay-per-view, they're welcome to do that. I don't think they will. I'll say that Dunne will win the title from Bate, and then maybe they'll kind of have Bate in the chase mode to try to get it back from Pete Dunne at the next, whatever couple of UK shows or whatever the next takeover show might be.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you completely on this one, and I feel like it's rough to say Tyler Bate's got to lose the title, but they haven't. It's tough. You win the championship, and then you're not seen on TV for like 2 months now. So I just think Pete Dunne's got he's the guy right now to carry. He's a great heel. He comes off as a great douche. I'll be honest with you, and people want to boo him. So I think the chase. I couldn't think of the word. The chase for Tyler Bate. If they continue the UK programming, would help him get over and put a little more emotion into it. So I think Pete Dunne takes title too. Now we're looking at the Authors of Pain versus DIY. This match is going to be a ladder match, and this is a tough one to predict too. I'm going to say here's how I look at it. If the Authors of Pain win, Gargano and Ciampa are going the main roster. If they lose, DIY is staying right where they are. I'm gonna say DIY gets the win in a fantastic match, but and they've lost to the Authors of Pain quite a few times now. So I think if they're not going to the main roster, this is the right move. So I'm going with DIY. Okay,
I'm gonna go Authors of Pain. I think that the whole idea behind Authors of Pain is that they're supposed to be this dominant tag team. They won the championships earlier in the year, retained them at the last Takeover Special WrestleMania weekend against DIY and the Revival, and an elimination match, which is also a very good match. I think that the stipulation is there to make people buy into the fact that the DIY can win or have a better chance at winning. The Authors of Pain wouldn't have to take a pin. But I think the Authors of Pain are going to retain. I don't know what the plans are for DIY, if they're going to stay together as a team, if they're going to split up, if they're going to go to a main roster type situation. I'm not sure when that's going to happen. But I think Authors of Pain are going to win. I think they're building up Heavy Machinery as a team for a shot at Authors of Pain, maybe the next feud for them, which I think kind of a big man team versus big man team match, which should be pretty cool. So I'm going to say Authors of Pain will retain the championships here.